So you decided, having with Yale, you were leading this great global expansion, expanding in bigger and New Haven and so forth. And now you've gone to the other side. What attracted you to this position of CEO of Coursera, this for-profit MOOC?
Well, it's not the other side. I mean, it's the same side. We partner with great universities and we extend their mission. When I was president of Yale, we were early pioneers in the online education space. We formed a joint venture with Stanford and Oxford back in the year 2000 in the first wave of these experiments that kind of tried and failed. An aesthetic success, but a financial flop. Back in 2004, we shut it down. But then we did open Yale courses starting in 2007 and built 45 excellent old-fashioned MOOCs. That is, it was the camera in the back of the classroom type presentation, just like this video, and that was a start. And I actually, from that point, saw the potential that this could reach a huge audience, and so very attracted to Coursera when it first started. We put a faculty committee together back in the first, spring of 2012. Like many faculty committees, it took them a year to decide what to do, and they decided to join Coursera. So before I left, Yale was already a Coursera partner. So I think in a way it's just a natural extension. We're trying to, at Coursera, we're trying to give a platform for the world's greatest universities and the greatest teachers to reach an audience that's vastly larger than universities have ever reached before.
Now, what are you spending your days doing, and how does that compare to how you were spending your days when you were running Yale?
Building a team and empowering those folks with responsibilities and holding them accountable and encouraging them to work together. Those are sort of constants in any senior management role. I mean, so that part is actually similar. It's much smaller scale. The company's much more intimate. We have meetings of the entire organization once a week. You couldn't do that at Yale with 11,000 staff and 11,000 students. That would be infeasible. But it works well. The pace is different. The need to make speedy decisions different. Interestingly enough, similar sense among the employees that everyone should have a voice in decisions. I mean, I think that's part of being in a startup. People feel that they want to, be heard, and that's certainly true in the university. Everybody wants to be heard, so there's a lot in common.
So, there are a number of interesting sort of waves of media coverage around this whole emergence of the MOOCs over the last few years, including a discussion about, is this going to drive the traditional college, bricks and mortar college out of business, or some proportion of the bricks and mortar world? I mean, and others arguing, this is in fact just going to enhance the capacity of the entire education system to do better. Where do you see the gales of creative destruction at work?
I'm very much on the side of the principal effect is going to be to expand the reach of higher education. And so not to supplant what higher education is currently doing, but really to extend it. And I mean, we just see it in everything we're doing. I mean, and almost every professor who's taught a course on Coursera has had more students in that course than in their entire teaching career in a bricks and mortar institution. It's just, it's hard, in a way it's kind of hard to grasp. Our mission as professors is to advance knowledge and to disseminate it through publications and teaching, and yet publication today for an academic researcher goes to an increasingly, almost vanishingly small number of experts in one's field. And dissemination, the better the university, the fewer students you teach. And so you're teaching small classes and maybe you touch a couple hundred lives a year. And here you touch tens of thousands. So that is the principal impact, and what it's doing for people around the globe who would never get access to anything like this. I mean, imagine, people in Africa and Southeast Asia and Latin America being able to take courses from the best professors at Stanford and Yale and Penn and Princeton, it's really fantastic.
But does that mean that they drive out the second-tier professors?
I don't think
that
so,
aren't
because
quite
people are
as
taking it.
photogenic
People
or-
are not necessarily substituting this for higher education. Like I say, it's mostly people who are older, who've either missed college or had college. 15% of our population of learners is in the college age sweet spot, 18 to 22. 85%, maybe 7% younger, and all the rest older. Many of the older folks have had college degrees, but are using the access to this as a way of either getting improved skills for the workplace, the theme of your conference today, or simply because they want enrichment in their lives. They're college graduates who would love the idea of taking a modern poetry course from Penn, or a Chinese philosophy course from Tsinghua. I mean, or Beida or whatever. You know, that's the kind of people that are doing this. So
now there's been a lot of attention to this question of whether maybe the Ivy League is going to be fine, but
yeah,
it is. I mean, if you are a community college, or if you're a liberal arts college that isn't getting the very best students. I mean, how does Coursera affect your world?
If you're in, a middle tier institution in the U.S. or frankly a lot of other countries, what is likely to happen? I think we will see people using the materials in these courses initially much the way that textbooks are used. That is, as a supplement to what the instructor at the sort of home institution provides. So the flipped classroom, but it's somebody else's course that you're flipping, not your own, will probably be the first step. And we have a few experiments going right now, like Bob Schiller's course from Yale is being used this semester at the University of Nebraska. So we're just trying this out.
And that has the potential to create, I mean, obviously Bob's a big star in economics, but I mean, he could become a mega star in academia through hundreds of thousands of students paying a lot of money.
Sure. So this could happen, and to the extent, then to what extent will those university administrations respond by reducing the number of faculty slots? You'd have to say it's a possibility. It's not something we're pushing or encouraging. The forces of creative destruction are stronger than any of our wills. So we'll have to see if more of that occurs. The MOOC is not a complete substitute for what goes on in a classroom. I mean, everyone knows that. Everyone who's taught, and I'm sure there are people in this audience who have taught. I mean, there's the quality of interaction, the opportunity for students to question and be questioned, the push on students to, create and defend an argument. These are the skills that go with learning how to think creatively and independently that, as yet, I think can't really be transmitted by MOOCs. MOOCs are great for mastering content, for basically mastering a subject matter, but they're not yet really fulfilling the full potential of providing a full liberal education to
now you mentioned content. I mean, some people that I've talked to have looked at the content and say, well, it's still basically the model is still the camera at the back of the lecture theatre, and that they're, I mean, certainly compared to something like Khan Academy, which has been quite inventive in its content, the MOOC stuff still feels like a university lecture. I mean, how soon is that going to change?
It's already changing. I mean, the great majority of our courses are actually close-ups of the faculty member speaking into the webcam rather than back of the classroom. And I don't know how many of you in the audience have actually tried one of these, but it has a sense of intimacy that is completely different from sitting in the back of a lecture hall. And you actually feel like the professor's right there in the room with you. And I think that it's actually highly engaging of the audience. So there's one sort of McLuhan-esque adaptation of the message to the medium. And I think there'll be more over time. And we do follow this sort of best practice pedagogy of interrupting the lectures every 6 to 10 minutes with a quiz, with an exercise, with something that engages the student. All these things, it takes it takes faculty a while to adjust to all these changes. The most interesting one right now is we have now created a new technology platform that allows the courses to be available on demand at scale. So anybody can watch anytime. It's like a Netflix movie. Learners, of course, love this because for most people out there in the workplace who want to take one of these courses, the idea that you have to do so much work each week for 10 weeks is, really challenging. But if you can work at your own pace and start the course whenever you want instead of waiting till January 15th, because that's when the semester starts, we're going to attract way more learners this way. And we see this in our first half dozen courses that are on demand. They're getting 3 to 4 times the number of students as the fixed sessions have been getting. But for faculty, this is really hard because they think, well, do I have to be on call all year round if I run it on demand, available anytime? And what they don't yet realize is the medium's different. The students, the discussion forums don't require your constant presence. Only 15% of the students actually use the discussion boards. Most people are just watching the videos, taking the quizzes, and learning on their own. So it'll take a while for all this to adapt. I believe that it will continue to evolve and become something very different from the classroom lecture in the end.
I guess the most common critique you hear of the MOOCs is these sort of, millions of people sign up and then 99.9% of them, don't ever really get very far into the course.
The on-demand will help with a lot of that because half of our attrition to date has been people signing up and never showing up to watch a video because the course started 6 weeks after they signed up. And that'll stop. People will at least try the course because they'll sign up and it's available and they'll start it. I think you'll still have a very large dropout rate within the first week because people will watch a lecture and decide, I don't know, do I want to commit, 30 hours to watching these videos or not? And the students may decide, learners may decide they just don't want to do that. It's free, so there's no commitment. You're not locked in. You haven't paid something. So, although economists would tell you that shouldn't matter anyway, the fact is, I think there'll always be large attrition at the beginning. The encouraging thing is in our numbers is people that finish the full first week of work, about not quite half, about 45% actually go all the way through the course. So
so it's that first week is the
if you get over that first week hurdle, and these courses are good. You should try them. I mean, they're terrific.
Yeah, some of us have jobs to do. But
you surely need retraining in something, Matthew.
So, what are the other interesting experiments that you've got going at the moment?
Well, we're constantly trying to refine and improve. What works best for learners and what makes people, most highly engaged. And so we've looked at all kinds, lecture, like I said, lecture segment length, the optimal number of weeks in a course.
And the lecture is 6 minutes is about the attention span.
Well, they're designed as modules so that, it's still a recognizable lecture. There might be 6 modules or 8 modules of 6 to 10 minutes each. And that's a lesson, and then there's another one. So you can recognize the outline of a course, and the new on-demand technology essentially lays the whole course out in front of you when you start, so you can see and you can actually go right. I don't need the first 3 weeks of calculus. I really need to just go back and remember how to take logarithmic derivatives or something. You can just jump to that. So. That'll be much more convenient. And we test, everything in Silicon Valley is testing and experimentation. We've got thousands and thousands of users. So you run A/B tests, controlled experiments on just about everything. I mean, we've done one experiment with this question of does the instructor's presence in the discussion forum actually matter? So some of the students didn't see the instructor's comments in the forum, and others did, and the performance of the students on the final exams was independent whether the instructor was in the forums was visible to them. But that's not surprising, actually, since 85% of the students didn't look at the forums anyway. So, so it's, we're kind of iterating our way to sort of continual improvement. We're also, I'll show you another interesting kind of experiment, is just iterating on the quality of lectures through the quiz results. So the students take quizzes all the time, all the way through the course. And we now are reporting back to the instructors this performance of their students on every quiz question. Now, some questions, students have, so if you find a question with a very low correct answer percentage, it means something is wrong. Either the question is poorly written, or maybe, perish the thought, the lecture segment leading up to that question was confusing or not very well done. And that allows the instructor to go back and think, why is it only 30% of the people got this question right? Was it do I need to retape that segment? And so this is the kind of feedback that you don't really get in a live lecture course. I think it'll really help to improve pedagogy.
And I mean, the other common theme when you see the discussion of the MOOCs is that essentially you're making an Ivy League of education available to tens of millions of people in China and
Exactly.
India and so forth. I mean, how in reality is that playing out?
It's really playing out well. That is to say, about a third of our students are from the US, about a third of the students are from developed economies elsewhere, Japan, South Korea, and Europe, and the other third from emerging economies. And China is by far our fastest growing market at the moment. We just launched about a year ago. We've done some things to improve the quality of the experience for the Chinese. The Chinese firewall actually means that the site performance is very slow. And so we've put the lecture videos inside the firewall so that none of the learner data is inside the firewall, but the lecture videos are. And that really improves accessibility of the courses. And that we saw a big spurt in use after that a few months ago. And now we're doing more translations. If you translate just the subtitles of the lectures, we've noticed that you get about 3 times improvement in the number of students enrolling and following the course. And if you actually localize the entire experience so that all of the web pages are in Chinese as well, that's probably another 2 to 3x. So we've had, as it is, we're getting growth in China that's much faster. Well, 1 in 8 of our global learners, new learners, are from China, and I think that number will get up to China, proportion of the population, probably to 1 in 5 within another year.
Okay, well, in a second I'll go to the audience. One last question really relates to, the business model. I mean, you talked about this is free, and I guess there were a number of MOOCs that started at the same time. There was Coursera, which is a for-profit, venture-backed operation. You had Udacity, which was another for-profit with a slightly different business model. Yeah. Then you had edX, which was, I guess, backed by MIT, Harvard, and their endowment, I guess, ultimately standing behind it, but an alliance of universities, which isn't a for-profit. And then I guess you have iVersity as well in Europe.
Yep.
I mean, and I think Udacity is already kind of significantly...
They've hived off to tech, skills training taught by industry experts for the most part. Not entirely, but most of their stuff now is in that direction. And it does compete with us in that domain because we have university professors teaching courses in new computer languages and machine learning and algorithms and things like that. So there is.
So what's your thinking about the competitive dynamics and what the ultimate business model is going to be for these?
The most similar to companies in this space are edX and Coursera, which are offering large-scale courses across the whole spectrum of the university syllabus with university professors teaching the courses. There's others that are providing support to higher touch, lower scale, higher touch experiences. That's a valuable thing to do as well. And there's probably things that Coursera and edX we'll get into eventually, but both of us seem to be going for the large-scale market first. I think there's room for more than one survivor here. It's a huge market potentially.
How are you going to monetize?
Yeah, so we charge an average price of about $50 for students who want a verified certificate that they completed the course and satisfactorily. And only a small percentage pay for in the aggregate, but in the skill building, essentially marketable, the marketable skills type courses, a much higher fraction are paying. So for example, our most popular offering right now is a 9-course, but they're 4-week courses, 9 4-week course specialization in data science, which is taught by professors from Johns Hopkins University. This is monetizing very effectively because about a quarter of the people are actually paying for the certificate, and it's a really valuable skill. I mean, the market for data scientists is really growing with so many companies and so many industries are finding the capacity of the opportunity to exploit big data is really important for them, and so we see a lot of interest in that.
So we've got some questions. Lady in the middle there, and then a lady at the front, and a gentleman there. We'll take all 3 in a row, and then we'll have another batch.
Hi, this is fantastic.
Please say who you are as well.
I'm sorry, Edie Fraser, STEM Connector. I think what you just are going is the best of blended learning, but if we heard you, 2/3 of your market is looking like it's coming out of the United States, and it is also an equalizer of education, right? Because the comment was made earlier that MOOCs do not go to low income, and between Africa and Asia, et cetera, you're seeing much more low income. So that's one. And then if you don't mind, amplify that certificate, because would the dream be that more and more have useful certificates out of your courses?
Yeah, take those 2 points then with the lady at the front.
Yeah.
Answer.
Yes, we're getting students from all over the world. We aren't actually asking everyone for their income, so we don't know very well what the income status is. We do know that educational status would suggest that even in the developing countries, we're skewing towards people with some education, as you would expect at this stage. But the point is that many people are taking the platform who have never had access to higher education. That is for sure. The other point about the credential, we think that we have a whole program focused on trying to get industries to understand, and companies to understand, the value of these credentials for job advancement. Many companies are starting to use these value these credentials in their hiring decisions. Some companies are actually sponsoring their employees to take courses on our platform. The government of Singapore is actually paying people to take this data science specialization.
But no plans to buy a university and start issuing degrees in your own?
We have no plans to issue degrees. We are only as good as our partners. I mean, we really have to. I mean, what we have is a unique asset, and that really edX and Coursera are separate from the others in this respect, is we have affiliations with the top universities in the world.
Lady at the front.
Hi, Maria Drago from Talent Management at United Nations Development Program. A lot of our colleagues, I'm sure if they were sitting here today, would be wondering, will you be partnering with any Spanish-speaking or French-speaking universities that will be offering courses?
Yes, we are. We just signed up our, we have 2 Mexican universities. We have several institutions in Spain, including Autonomous University of Barcelona and a couple of the leading business schools there. We just signed on 3 partners in Brazil, that's Portuguese, and we have many of the leading institutions in France, including the École Normale Supérieure and a couple of the other Grande Écoles, and we have a really expansive program of courses offered by École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne in Switzerland, which teaches in French and has a special outreach program to Francophone Africa, where they're working with companies and with the governments there to provide opportunities for students to take these courses and actually get credits for the courses they offer.
Gentleman in the middle there.
I'm
Yeah.
Michael Waxman. I'm one of your paying students, so
Great.
I paid you $49 for your signature track,
Terrific.
and the classes are phenomenal, and they're getting better. I've looked at them now over the last couple of years.
Terrific, thank you.
And so I'm a great fan, but I'd love to challenge you on the description of how the relationship between your universities and Coursera will develop. And the way I look at it is, in the next 10 years, the balance of power will shift, and it's a little bit more like the cable providers and content providers. There's an ESPN that gets $4 from a cable provider, and that may be Harvard or MIT or Stanford, but there's the cooking channel for 15 cents. And I think that you really will get such scale. It's a great investment for your investors, and I think it'll be a really, whether it's Coursera ultimately alone or many others, but there will be a shift of power where you as a brand will have tremendous clout and distribution regardless of who are the channels underneath. And so I think it's a brilliant model.
That sounds
Well, before
good.
Rick confirms how rich he's going to get, we'll just take one more question at the back, and Neil comment on that, and then we'll unfortunately, no, at the back there's a gentleman on the left, and then I think we have to wrap up, unfortunately,
Sure.
so time's up. But
Yeah, thank you. Charles Allison from the New School. I'm just wondering, obviously, what have you thought about in the future about something that's more synchronous, so seminar-related, where it is really live, and something that takes a different pedagogy, like teaching by case method, for example, as opposed to just lectures?
Yeah.
And finally, we have a gentleman right at the front here. Just take that as well, and you can respond to all of these.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to take it back to the first question you asked, which I realize was in jest, but which was about going to the dark side. So there's a lot of misconceptions about MOOCs, so I wanted to give you an opportunity maybe to talk about one that irks you the most and why it's a myth or why it's sort of a paper tiger and why people shouldn't fear change in higher ed and really embrace it.
Well, that's a nice note to end on.
Good,
So do you want to take those 3 points?
Sure. Market power. Maybe Coursera will acquire some market power, but frankly, our commitment is to sharing our revenue with our partners. We think we can help the universities through that sharing. I think it's possible Coursera will become a brand, but I think we are not much of a brand without the Stanford and the Yale and the Penn and the Johns Hopkins and that are creating the content for us, and all these great institutions around the world. So yes, maybe, but I think there'll be a lot of good for everybody in it. Small classes and case method and intensive methods of teaching. This is very valuable, and there are learning management systems that have the technology to do that now. I think, will we get there and offer that as a supplement to what we do? I think so. Probably not in a hurry, because we've got so many other important things to do to build out and make effective education at scale. But I do think we envision that we could have small sections where people would pay perhaps a premium price to get the weekly conversation with the professor, maybe a video chat. I think that will happen. Not going to happen in the next 12 months, but it's something that we certainly have on the long-term roadmap. And dispelling the myths. There's really so much to say about that, actually. The hardest thing for my university colleagues to understand about this is I think that it's a whole new game. That the opportunities are different. That what does it mean now if you're a Yale professor to reach the world? How does that change the way you think of your work? And doesn't that in some ways just justify and magnify the huge investment that any scholar at a great university has made in a lifetime of learning and developing expertise? I mean, now you can bring that to just so many more people. So I think people it's hard for people to get over that hump. You go to talk to universities and they think, oh, great, we have this technology. I'm really only interested in how it will help me improve my classroom, my teaching on campus. Well, come on, get your head out of the sand. It's important to improve your performance of teaching on campus, but there's a whole world out there that you're not seeing that we're opening up to you. And I think, to me, that's just lesson number one. But it has so many corollaries, which are, change the way you're thinking. It's a new medium. It creates immense new opportunity. And by the way, most of the radical social changes that have been brought to the world have been brought through capitalist companies innovating. And we're just we're trying to change the world, just like Google changed all of our worlds for the better. Who would deny that the access to information is a good thing? It's a great thing. And I'm not saying everybody has to love Google, but we certainly love access to information, and we're giving people access to education.
Great. So one last question for me is a prediction. How many years before there are more people studying through Coursera than are going to a traditional physical university or college?
I think it's possible that by next year, or maybe certainly by 2016, there will be more students globally studying on Coursera in a year than are enrolled in full-time higher educational institutions in the United States. But to get to the global total, it may take a few years, but it's getting there.